order of operations review. I know that most of you are pretty comfortable with order of operations, but this is something that I know a lot of you struggled with on your study island last week. So I just want to review the basics of order of operations before we launch into chapter 5. Because as we go through chapter 5, it is my understanding that at this point you should know order of operations. So this is a little quick review for you before we get into the good stuff and you have to use order of operations every day. Okay, I know that you guys are used to PEMDAS, or please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And I don't care if you still use PEMDAS, but I feel like I need to teach you GYMDAS. This is kind of where the mathematicians are trying to get teachers to stop teaching PEMDAS and to move towards GYMDAS, because G stands for grouping symbols. Grouping symbols. So parentheses are a grouping symbol, but so are brackets. And they want you to realize that not just parentheses come first, but also brackets that look like this or this would be included in that first step of order of operations. So any of those grouping symbols would be your first thing that you would do when you see a problem, any type of problem. Sometimes students get into the point where they just do order of operations when they're told, okay, we're practicing order of operations. You should always be using order of operations every math problem you have that you're trying to get to an final answer. E stands for exponents. We have talked about exponents this year, but let's review what is an exponent. It would be 2 squared. That square means that I'm going to take 2 times 2. Or if I were to have 2 cubed, that 3 means I'm going to take 2 times 2 times 2. I'm multiplying this number by itself, the exponent's number of times. M and D means multiply and divide. From left to right. And a lot of times 7th graders will make the mistake. They'll go through and they'll do all the multiplication and then they'll do all the division. You should multiply and divide in order from left to right. So if division comes first on the left side and then multiplication is on the right side, then you do the division before the multiplication, and that is totally okay. So you do it in order from left to right. As you read the problem from left to right, just like you'd read a book, you see what multiplication and division needs to be simplified. Then I have A and S for addition and subtraction, and it is the same story as multiplication and division. You do addition and subtraction in order from left to right. I like GYMDAS. I think it's easier personally than PEMDAS, but I've been teaching it for 5 years, so maybe it's just stuck in my head at this point. But I really like when I see it laid out like this, because it reminds me that multiplication and division are in order from left to right, and addition and subtraction are in order from left to right. Okay, so my first year teaching, our students were really struggling with order of operations. And one of my coworkers, who was also an 8th grade math teacher, decided to make up a rap to help the students memorize the order of operations. What you may not know about me yet is that I have a horrible singing voice. I love to sing, but I have a horrible singing voice, and she made me do this, so we practiced it and we did it in front of our students. So I'm going to sing a little song for you. I am not being humble. I really do not have a good singing voice, so don't make fun of my voice. It's just a fun little rap to remind you how to do the order of operations. So here it goes. Teach me how to simplify, teach me how to simplify, teach me how to simplify. Grouping symbols are first in line, exponent second every time. Multiply, divide from left to right, then you add and subtract from left to right. In this order is the only way to be. You'll get it right every time and shout with glee. Teach me how to simplify. Teach me how to simplify. Teach me how to simplify. Okay, now that you've learned how to rap, get ready because we're going to do it in class. We are going to practice our order of operations. So whenever I see a problem that it looks like there's a lot to be done and I know I'm going to need to use my order of operations to be able to solve it because there's lots of different symbols going on within it, I write my GymDOS off to the side. It just helps me to go, okay, do I have any grouping symbols in this problem? And sure enough, I do. I have some grouping symbols right here. So I need to do what's on the inside of that. So 5 minus 3 is 2. Then I very neatly bring down everything else. So I have 2 squared. This was a multiplication symbol. Bring down my 3, the subtraction, and the 68. And at this point, I don't have any grouping symbols. Somebody might say, but your 2 is in parentheses, but there's nothing to do inside of those parentheses. So I'm done with grouping symbols. Then I look at exponents. Do I have an exponent? I sure enough do. I have this 2 right here. So I'm going to do my exponent of 2 squared. 2 times 2 is 4. Then I go ahead and I bring everything down. And I do not have any more exponents, so I am done with the E. Then I look at multiplication and division in order from left to right. And I look and I start on my left side and I go this way. Do I have any multiplication or division? I do. I have 3 times 4, so that's 12. So I have 68. Bring down my subtraction, 68 minus 12. Do I have any more multiplication or division? I do not, so I am finished. And then I do 68 minus 12, which is 56. And I'm done with my problem. I circle my answer. See how much work is shown there? That is how much I will expect to see on your piece of paper. It doesn't have to be neatly written, but it needs to be line by line, just like mine is. Okay, we have another order of operations problem here. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to do my grouping symbols first. So do I have any? I do. Here are some grouping symbols. 4 plus 1 is 5. And then I bring everything else down as it was. This is one of the most critical pieces, is when you're rewriting everything. It's when people will forget a subtraction symbol or a negative sign. You've got to be really careful there. So we're done with grouping symbols. Do I have any exponents? I sure enough do. I have 2 squared. So I do 2 times 2 squared is 4 plus 6 divided by 2 minus 5. Do I have any more exponents? I do not. So I can go ahead and cancel that out. Then I have multiply divide from left to right. So I start on my left side and I go to the right. So 2 times 4 is 8. I have another multiplication or division problem. I have 6 divided by 2, which is 3. So I bring down this plus symbol between them and the minus 5. If you want to make it so that you're like this, to show you, okay, I did those numbers and I did these numbers, so that you don't add in anything extra, that might be a smart idea. So I'm done with multiplication and division. All I have left is addition and subtraction. So I add and subtract from left to right. So I do 8 plus 3 is 11 minus 5, and 11 minus 5 is 6. So I circle my answer, and again, I have my piece of pizza as it narrows down to a smaller number.